December 23rd because Christmas Eve falls on a weekend, I believe, and so we're planning on December 23rd. I've heard 25th actually is the drop dead date. But then it's not 90 days. Well, it's 90 days, but.
And would the Secretary of State's office be required to open up to accept petitions if you went that far?
I don't know. We wouldn't go that far. I have a 3-year-old.
This week you submitted a public records request to the Yost office regarding Bob Bennett's communications. Why did you do that? What do you hope to? What do you think you might find?
I try, and I've tried for 20 years in elected office, to not question, at least publicly, the motives of my political opponents who may believe differently than I or the Democrats that I care about as a leader of the Democratic Party. I try not to question their motives openly, and when I do it, I try and do it in a way that's constructive rather than destructive, and I certainly try not to personalize it. Bob Bennett crafted an editorial, a column in the Columbus Dispatch on Sunday that questioned my motives and my motives as it relates to this petition gathering process, suggesting that I was more interested in running for the United States Congress. Now, as I mentioned to a couple of folks this morning, all of you have covered me repeatedly, and you have never heard anyone say that publicly or privately about me. Running for the Congress is perhaps the furthest thing from my mind. I just can't imagine running for the Congress. Bob Bennett knows that as well. I've known Bob since I became chairman in late 2005, and with one exception, he has never attacked my motives and questioned them publicly as he did on Sunday. What I had known over the course of the last summer is that Bob Bennett was employed as a special consultant by Dave Yost's office. The question is, was he paid? If he was paid, I think the voters of this state, the people of this state, should know why, and ask Dave Yost why. Dave Yost, a year ago, was in favor of collective bargaining for public employees, specifically law enforcement. Today, he's opposed to. That kind of hypocrisy cannot stand. It is my opportunity to shed light on this process. Bob Bennett can question my motives. I'm about to question his.
Yost's office, though, says that they find no record
They
of
said that yesterday in a one-sentence response. I believe they should continue to look.
I talked to him this morning, and they told me that he's not a consultant for them, or ever hasn't been. What's your response?
The apportionment board is funded by both the majority and minority, and those resources are used to pay consultants, lawyers, and the like. We may not have asked the right question. Maybe the dollars didn't come directly out of Dave Yost's general fund. I'm quite confident we're going to find out that the former chairman of the Republican Party was compensated by some entity with public dollars for his input. And I hope to be joined in my curiosity by others asking similar questions.
Are you concerned that this uncertainty about where and when people could vote for members of Congress will just cause voters to say fie on all of you? They're not going to separate you from the Republicans. They're just going to say this is another big mess and an example of members of elected office not being able to work together.
No for the former, yes to the latter. I do believe that voters will respond to the legislative leaders and ask them to become engaged and work in an effort that is clearly bipartisan. Yes, so I would agree with the latter part of your statement. I disagree with the former part of your statement that suggests that somehow voters will stay at home or not be engaged with Democratic or Republican members of Congress or their candidates seeking those offices. It's natural for an election year for candidates to engage the public, and I know that this coming year's race, I should say, is going to be something that captures the attention of all Ohioans because of the lack of a commitment by Speaker Boehner and the Republicans in Congress to commit themselves to a jobs agenda, because of the struggling economy and the fact that Ohioans are looking for solutions, real and profound solutions, and because of the fact that a majority of Americans support President Obama's jobs initiative and the work that Senator Brown and so many others are doing in the Congress, I think that voters will respond to those who stand in the way of that obstructionist policy, with obstructionist policies.
Are you still considering filing against the General Assembly maps the apportionment board approved? What's the story with that?
That is driven by the legislature. The apportionment process is driven by the legislature.
You don't know anything?
Do Armin Bush. I do, but I just refer you on. Or to Creek Park.
Do you have an estimate of how much this would cost if you have to go through it?
How much did this cost? Did the
Oh.
printing cost?
10 grand, $10,000.
So that's what you're into it so far.
Oh, no, no, there's a price on our cost to the staff to do the work and the field staff. So I don't, and I wouldn't release it because I don't know it yet, Jim, but we're investing resources in this effort because it's worth it and it's so important. If you live in Cincinnati and your neighborhood has been cut up like a pepperoni pizza, if you live in downtown Toledo and you've never heard of Jim Jordan, now you're thinking that he's going to be your member of Congress, lives more than 100 miles away. If you live in Hillsborough and the thought of having a former banking lobbyist represent you in the United States Congress, you expect the state party to stand up and invest on your behalf, and that's what's occurring.
Any more questions?